second event of the year tonight. Darryl is an investment banker turned movement coach, author, and founder of primalplay.com, which is a physical activity method based on play, fun, and functional movement. His TEDx talk, Why Working Out Isn't Working Out, has had over 700,000 views. His talk tonight is titled Physical Inactivity, the Hidden Pandemic. Physical inactivity is responsible for 1 in 6 UK deaths, the same as smoking, and it surely has had a huge impact on the nation's health this year with COVID-19. The good news is that across Hull, a campaign has launched this year, encouraging people to take small steps to make big changes regarding physical activity. You can find out more about that at gethullactive.co.uk. Given the topic of today's talk, I'd encourage you to occasionally stand or stretch to break up periods of inactivity. And in any case, hopefully Darryl will hopefully show us some of his activity moves either during or at the end of the session. As Patrick has already said, please ask any questions in the chat box. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Darryl. Thanks very much.
Good evening, everyone. It's what an unusual time we have at the moment, right? It's when we think about the pandemic, the current pandemic that we're having to deal with COVID-19. Certainly what struck me even more than that was how behavior has changed in relation to physical activity. So at the beginning of the pandemic, when lockdown was introduced, there was only one option available for people to go outside, which was exercise and to grab your essentials. So if you were fortunate enough to be able to have the opportunity to go outside, that was certainly a blessing for many, myself included. However, when going to my local park, my local playground, I noticed something quite bizarre in relation to the activities that were being undertaken. So people weren't allowed to have picnics or barbecues. They weren't allowed to sit on benches. They weren't allowed to sit on the grass. So because of that, people were quite ingenious in relation to the activities they were undertaking. And most of those activities were pretty much going back to what I saw as a child, what I took part in as a child. So parents were no longer on their phones. They were interacting with their kids. They were encouraging their children to play riskier activities, climbing trees, building dens. Kids were playing hide and seek. Adults were dancing in the park. They were learning to ride skateboards. There was a culture of fun and joy that came about as part of trying to get more activity in to their day, but not doing the usual mundane activities that we would associate with people exercising in the park. So incredibly, there were less people running or walking in the park. There were certainly less people doing boot camp type physical activities and exercise. People were just seeking out fun, having smiles on their faces, and really exploring what their bodies could do within a natural environment. As the restrictions were being eased, what I did notice, however, was that people reverted back to their norm. So people stopped playing hide and seek and hopscotch, and children were no longer climbing trees, and the dens weren't being built, and structured activities became back to the fore. So kids were starting to play football again, and rugby and cricket, and parents were back on the benches on their smartphones, watching their kids being supervised by other adults as they were being coached with structured sport. And there was certainly an absence of joy and fun and pleasure in that new environment. So pretty much as restrictions were lifted, people reverted back to the norm. And then there were even more people then sitting in the park, picnicking, barbecues, and no longer taking part in those riskier, playful activities. And as we know, physical inactivity is certainly a pandemic. It certainly affects us all globally. We've never been as physically inactive as we are today as human beings. And this almost devolution, this physical activity being part and parcel of our day, as hunter-gatherers, pre-industrial revolution, pre-technology revolution, to where we are today, where literally the chair is our domain, and we can entertain ourselves, we can play games, we can communicate, we can socialize, we can order food, we can do all of those things from the comfort of our armchairs. So our environment has become even more sedentary enabled because of the wonders of technology. And given the fact that many of us are now entering this secondary phase of additional restrictions, we're even less active, again, compounded on that basis. So what are the concerns around physical activity? Why is it such a problem anyway? Well, one, the headline fact about physical inactivity is if you compare a physical inactive population that's doing less than the recommended guidelines of 150 minutes a week of cardiovascular activity and twice a week of resistance training, which is often neglected. It's not often mentioned that that's part of the minimum recommendation by most public health bodies around the world. Comparing population who don't meet that recommendation and those that do and exceed that, there's a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality, comparing both of those populations. And specific cause mortality, such as cardiovascular disease, there's a 30 to 50% reduction in specific cause mortality for cardiovascular disease, 50% reduction in hypertension risk, 20 to 30% reduction in Alzheimer's and dementia risk. There are significant mental health benefits. There's a 30% reduction in anxiety and depression risk. So we know at the top level that there are all of these significant benefits, not only to disease prevention, chronic lifestyle disease prevention, but also to our mental well-being, to improvement in function and quality of life. And certainly it's one of the best interventions we have available to us, which doesn't have to cost anything, doesn't require external resources to be able to implement, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy to do. So that's a difficulty with this type of lifestyle intervention. On the one hand, all we have to do is to move more. All we need to do is to engage our body in some form of physical exertion, whether that's cardiovascular exertion or whether that's resistance-based exertion. That's all we have to do. But the problems are threefold. One, humans are designed to seek out convenience. Our bodies are constantly telling us, our DNA is primed to tell us that rest is good. Taking shortcuts are good. Minimizing calorie expenditure, calorie burn is a good thing. We feel comfortable on that basis. So that's the first problem. Our biology is constantly telling us that sitting down is a great idea. The second is our environment. So our environment encourages us to be sedentary. We have great chairs. If you go back even 20, 30 years, chairs in public spaces were very uncomfortable. Most of the furniture I remember from my childhood wasn't that comfortable. Sofas, armchairs were not that comfortable. Nowadays, sofas have become almost like secondary beds, really comfortable, absorbing us, just kind of literally surrounding us with comfort. That certainly never used to be the case. And so this furniture is now designed, rather than being just functional, it's now become something where we want you to reside in this location for as long as possible and for you to feel as comfortable as you can. So there's the immediate environment of many of us in a seated situation, but there's the environment outside our home as well. So we go outdoors, we have fantastic transport options available to us, whether it's our car or a series of cars that many family homes have, public transport options, our commutes to work, which are decreasingly active commutes. If we go back to the 70s, nearly 90% of children walked or were using a bike to get to school. Now it's less than 10%. Children today, 75% of children spend less time outside than prison inmates. So we recognize the importance of physical activity for prison inmates because we're aware, psychologists are aware of the improvements in behavior of prisoners, improvements of their mental health, of their physical health, by ensuring they have 1 hour outdoors daily. But yet for our children, this isn't something which we mandate. And children are increasingly becoming domiciled. That's part of the 21st century, is our children are doing less, are certainly less active than we were as children, are certainly in an environment of helicopter parenting, of increased health and safety concerns, which mean that children have less and less opportunities for free roaming and free range play. And so we've just now have this culture and an environment, which means when we ourselves are telling ourselves not to move very much because it feels great, then we have the environment around us, whether we outsource movement, i.e. let's get something else or someone else to do that work for us, or our environment discourages us from moving, i.e. don't take the stairs. You know, we see those signs everywhere in London Underground. Don't take the stairs, be careful of the stairs, be watchful of the stairs, please take the lift instead. It's quicker taking the lift. You know, don't take the stairs, be careful, you might trip, you might fall. It could be a problem for you. That's a lot of exertion. Be careful if you're frail, etc., etc., etc. Why risk taking the stairs when you could take a mechanical device that will do it for you? The third problem is really down to a shift, I suppose, in our attitudes towards movement. So now, because we can outsource a lot of activities for someone else to do on our behalf, you know, we don't even have to go shopping now. We can order our food in. We don't have to perform many physical actions and activities anymore. So that even if we do decide that movement is useful for us and exercise is good for us, and we decide to join a gym, for example, gyms. Gym operators are successful in relation to that subscription model of getting people to sign up for memberships in the new year, usually on a 12-month commitment, sometimes longer. They know if every single member turned up to the gym, there wouldn't be enough equipment, there would be enough space. But they know that 50% of those who sign in the first few days of January won't actually attend the gym ever. They won't go. So those are the official stats on membership retention, of memberships actually utilizing services. 50% sign and don't show up. Of those who do commit, by month 2 or 3, there's a significant reduction. So a third of those who decide they want to continue basically fall off by the 3rd month of the year. And by the end of the year, only those who are really truly committed, about 4% of those who signed up at the beginning of the year, will become habitual members, attending 2 or 3 times a week. So we have a significant problem. The solutions that we provide to get people to be more active, to exercise, to be in these great facilities, these gymnasiums, which offer a smorgasbord of equipment. We've never had as much equipment, exercise programs, different types of options available for us to try to enjoy movement. Comfortable, you can watch TV, you can connect your tech, you can have engaging instructors, fluffy towels, spa experiences afterwards, jacuzzi, you know, creches are available. There are all these add-ons available to make us feel that it's a great decision to sign up to the gym, but we don't attend. Or many of us don't attend. And interestingly, gym membership has never been higher. So pre-lockdown, gym memberships were on the increase. Unfortunately, the statistics around people actually attending were exactly the same. So more people signing up, more favorable options for memberships, you know, monthly memberships, pay-as-you-go memberships to entice people, but it wasn't actually affecting people attending the gym. So we've covered physical inactivity, some of the stats in relation to why it's beneficial for us. Let's cover a little bit more detail. When I got into physical activity myself, so I used to work in investment banking technology. I worked for Microsoft back in the early 90s. And at the time, investment banks were investing in technology in a big way. They realized technology could help them make more money. So they started to headhunt people like myself from software houses like Microsoft, like IBM. And I was fortunate enough to join an investment bank and really did well. Very lucrative. I was really doing extremely well financially. I spent almost 20 years within that environment, working long hours. On average, I would say about 16 hours a day would be a normal day for me, most days of the week. And I didn't really mind them taking their pound of flesh because they paid me for the privilege. So I would seek out even more hours. I wanted to get ahead. I wanted to be promoted. I wanted to make sure I was working on the best technology, that I was helping the bank to make lots of money. So I wanted the rewards. Unfortunately, I suffered by being told that what I was doing wasn't healthy. And I only knew this because I had very expensive, several £100s a year, health checks, MOTs, health MOTs, where there were lots of bloods drawn, a whole host of tests being done. So I was basically told in my mid-30s, Mr. Edwards, you are pre-diabetic, you have a really poor lipid profile, elevated triglycerides, really poor cholesterol profile. Also, I had stage 2 chronic hypertension, so elevated blood pressure, and the recommendation by my doctor at that time was to take metformin for my blood, to manage my blood glucose, to take statins for my cholesterol, triglycerides issue, and to take beta blockers for my blood pressure. And I asked my doctor, okay, right, this sounds great. When can I start taking these meds? When will I be fixed? How long do I need to take these for? Oh, well, Mr. Edwards, this is going to be for the rest of your life. Okay, really? Okay, I had no idea that was going to be the case. Yeah, this is going to be something you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. And secondly, the side effects. And let's have a discussion around the side effects. If there are any side effects, Mr. Edwards, there's always something else we can give you to still give you some really good results, but just realize that this is going to be you from now on. And I was very inquisitive. So I said to my doctor, aren't I too young for something like this? I'm like in my mid-30s. It seems pretty drastic. And my doctor said, well, look, if you do nothing now, you're increasing your risk of you dying prematurely. And I knew colleagues in their early 40s who were dying of heart attacks, who were taking medication for high blood pressure. And so I assumed, being in a stressful environment, that probably had a part to play. My diet wasn't very healthy, having Snickers bars and Red Bull, cans of Red Bulls for breakfast, for example, and being heavily sleep deprived because I was working and on call 24/7. One thing I do remember was that blood pressure responds to physical activity. So I said, Doc, do you reckon it'd be worthwhile me joining a gym, me starting to exercise and seeing if there's going to be any benefit? Can I give it a go for a few weeks at least? And my doctor said, sure, have a blood pressure monitor, check it yourself daily, go to the gym and see how you get on. We still need to talk about the other meds though, but you'll be okay for the next few weeks. I started exercising. My blood pressure started to respond really well. I went down to normal, so the 120 over 80, got down to about 110, 115 over 75, and went to see my doctor in a few weeks. I was like, oh, my blood pressure is looking really good. Can we start retesting some of the other markers? And that took place over about 2 to 3 months. But the great news was my other markers started to improve. My blood glucose started to normalize. And prior to me when I had the test initially, I was 1 marker away, from full-blown type 2 diabetes diagnosis. So my A1C and my fasting glucose were really close to full-blown type 2. They started to normalize as well. So my blood glucose improved, my blood pressure improved, and my cholesterol profile also improved. So this is all looking really, really good. And my doctor said to me at the time, Darryl, this is really fascinating. What else are you doing? Are you taking, have you got the prescription meds from somewhere else? I'm really fascinated by this result. And I said, well, what are you going to do on the back of this? He says, well, I'm going to do some research as to why this is happening. And I, not knowing much about this at all, said, do you mind sharing some of that research with me? Because this is quite fascinating. And please continue to observe me, because trust me, if anything changes, I want to go on those meds. So please keep a close eye on me. So fortunately, for the next sort of 6 months or so, having regular visits to the doctor, things were still looking really good. And there were other health changes as well. So my sleep started to improve. I started thinking about what I should be doing in terms of diet. So I started thinking about improving my lifestyle, I suppose. So for me, physical activity was certainly the gateway that led me to think about what else I could do to maintain good health. And so that was about sort of 14, 15 years ago, where I started this journey. And I stayed within banking until I was about 41 years old. Whilst I learnt more, became a personal trainer, did lots of cross training, got mentored in different areas, studied nutritional therapy. I really wanted to get a handle on what I could do to improve my own health and well-being, but then recognized that maybe I could help other people do the same. So that's really kind of the arc of me leaving investment banking 2010, 2011, and deciding I was going to dedicate my life in some form to helping people coach lifestyle and improving their health and well-being. All sounds great until I had some bad news. And that bad news was the fact that I started to fall out of love with exercise. I had all this enthusiasm. I was like an evangelist preaching to my friends and family about how great physical activity was. I found my solution, my salvation in physical activity. Look what it's done for me. I've got into shape. It's just great, great, great. Tick, 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 tick. No downsides. Isn't this wonderful? Until I started to miss every other gym session. And, I then started to put it off for the following week. Next Monday would be a great day to start my exercise regimen again. I started to hate the discomfort that came about for exercise. I was chasing no pain, no gain. I wasn't seeking any pleasure. There certainly wasn't any joy in the process. There was only joy in the rewards. And so once those rewards, those short-term acute rewards started to diminish, it felt like, well, what's the point? And I started to go back down this path of becoming more sedentary, of I don't need to active commute anymore. I'll put the bike away. Maybe I'll sell the bike. Who needs it? Why am I spending this money on my gym membership? I'm not really using it anyway. And I literally started to revert back to this sedentary individual until I had a eureka moment. And that was me deciding, Darryl, when was the last time you were really passionate and really loved movement, which wasn't just about you having a amber warning or a red alert from your doctor? When was the last time? And I thought about in my 20s, dancing all night in a nightclub, or maybe playing five-a-side football once in a while with the guys from work, or playing Laser Quest, those kind of virtual reality games where you're basically shooting lasers at other people. But I started to realize that the only joy that I had for movement wasn't from structured exercise. It was actually when I was choosing to do something that was fun. And as I went through my play history, so to speak, from adulthood into teenage years, into childhood, I recognized that my inner child, that's what my inner child was screaming out for. I don't recall times of my favorite PE lesson as a kid. That's not a memory that I have. I do have lots of memories of playing tag, of playing hide and seek, of playing British Bulldog, of playing kick the can, of climbing trees, of building dens, of riding my bike for miles, having no idea where we were going and how we were going to get back, of avoiding dinner time because I didn't want to eat, because it was more fun just being outside playing. And of course, all those days of summer were hot, glorious days all day long. There was never any rain that I can remember. But certainly fun and joy and the purpose and the pursuit of play was what fascinated me as a kid. And convention dictates you have to grow out of that. You have to get really serious. And physical activity is part of that seriousness. And exercise is part of that seriousness. And you have to feel discomfort, and you have to feel pain, and you have to feel displeasure in order for you to get what you want. And maybe you can do it for charity. So that's worthwhile. That punishing yourself for charity is a great thing to do. So let's sign up for something like that so you can commit to doing it, because you have somebody else to think about whilst you're going through that pain and that discomfort. Maybe you have to get into your wedding suit or your wedding dress so you can spend that time and dedicate that time to making sure that happens. But again, pleasure is not part and parcel necessarily of that process. It's just getting things done. So that was where my arc shifted again, to recognizing that play was important to me. And I needed to divorce myself from this serious adult and become more the kidult that I truly am, and to embrace my inner child and to embrace more play into my physical activity domain. And that's how I came up with the primal play method, trying to marry the best of what we know from evolutionary biology, why humans are designed to move in the way that they are, to understand the exercise science. So what are the underlying mechanisms which support good health when we exercise? And then using play theory and play psychology to make movement more exciting, to make movement more engaging, to make it something that you're more likely to want to do. Because if we don't have sustainability of our movement practice, it's pointless. It's just theoretical. And we'll constantly be talking about, why am I falling in and out of love with movement again and again and again? Why is this happening to me? Why am I recommitting to exercise? Why can't I have a lifelong commitment to movement? That's what I wanted to try to solve with the primal play solution, the primal play method. So that takes us to where we are today. And I suppose, as you're all clinicians, it's fascinating how much many of us are ignorant as to why movement is so good for us, because we can just latch on to movement is good for you. Movement's good for your health. Physical activity is good for your health. Exercise is good for your health. And we don't really need to know much more than that. But I want to give you an opportunity to know a little bit more of the science. And especially in areas where we had no idea up until fairly recently that there was a relationship in terms of supporting good health. So one is a hormone beginning with the letter I. And another one you're thinking of right now is probably insulin. But there's another one which was discovered in 2012, published in Nature magazine, and it's called irisin, IRISIN. Not many people are aware of this hormone. It's known as the exercise hormone. It has a significant number of benefits. It's recognized as the musculoskeletal system as being our largest endocrine organ. And so because of that, this hormone is secreted through muscle contraction. And this muscle contraction, which stimulates and secretes this hormone, there is significant crosstalk, not just from muscle to muscle or muscle to bone, but from muscle to pretty much all of our internal organs. So there's crosstalk from muscle to the pancreas, to the liver, to the heart, to the lungs, to the brain, and so on. And these agents, and irisin is just one of them, is a myokine, which is basically a muscle-based cytokine, which promotes reduction in inflammation. especially systemic inflammation. So these myokines, so irisin is one of those. All these different myokines, so interleukin 6 is another, for example. There are two versions of interleukin 6. One is pro-inflammatory, one is anti-inflammatory. In the short term, muscle contraction and recovering from the muscle damage that occurs through exercise actually creates a short-term acute inflammatory response. We get muscle soreness, delayed onset of muscle soreness. But that acute inflammatory cascade leads to reduction, anti-inflammatory reduction chronically. So C-reactive protein, for example, is an inflammatory marker. For those who exercise, you see reductions in CRP levels. Other inflammatory markers like homocysteine, which is a cardiovascular risk marker, inflammatory marker, that's reduced. There's a whole series of them. TNF alpha, for example, is also reduced. So there's a whole series of markers that when people are monitored for long-term exercise adherence, those markers are reduced chronically. And so irisin is probably the main takeaway. And there are all of these other myokines that are released from muscle contraction. So for those who are sedentary, there is less of these hormones circulating around the body. There is more likely to be a cascade of a pro-inflammatory cascade because of a sedentary lifestyle. And you're less likely to have the anti-inflammatory benefits of exercise. So that was one of the first things that was fascinating to me about this new hormone, these myokines, the fact that muscle, being a significant constituent of the human body, is responsible for promoting healing. And this healing effect is not just for muscle, but it's also for the bone as well. So you have osteokines, which are the bone-based cytokines. Okay, so that covers the anti-inflammatory response, which I think is really important because often people talk about you can do too much exercise and it can be problematic, but it's very difficult to do too much exercise, especially if you have a variety of physical activities that you're undertaking. Another interesting area is in relation to the gut microbiome. And regardless of where we stand on this, we do know it plays some role in the health of humans. We do know there's a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria that we host. Some are health promoting bacteria and some are pathogenic. So that's pretty clear. No one would really dispute that. What's interesting is that it's not only food or soil-based organisms that can promote health promoting bacteria, but physical activity also promotes health promoting bacteria as well. And the short chain fatty acid production of butyrate comes from physical activity. So the sort of almost fueling the health promoting bacteria for those who are active versus those who are inactive. And the reason why that study came about was research looking at rugby players and noticing that rugby players had better gut microbiomes, more volume of health promoting bacteria, and more diverse. And they compared rugby players versus the normal population. And they said, oh, this is really interesting. Maybe it's because these rugby players have a better diet. They have chefs and nutritionists that are controlling what they eat on a regular basis. That's obviously why they have a healthier gut flora. So the next step in the study was to look at rugby players themselves. So they controlled for diet, basically. And they looked at the gut bacteria, and they noticed that the fitter rugby players had up to 20% more beneficial gut bacteria, volume, and also diversity. And they couldn't establish why this was. Was it because they were eating a better diet? Well, the diet was out of the window because that was controlled for. What they pinned this down to was something called the peak VO2 max, which is a measure of aerobic function or aerobic capability. And it's a measure usually of, it's even a measure of longevity, health and longevity as well. So it's a measure of athletic performance, cardiovascular athletic performance, but it's also a measure of linked to long-term longevity as well. So they found that those with a higher peak VO2 max had up to a 20% increase in health promoting bacteria. So those were two areas that fascinated me. And I suppose the third area of interest is in relation to insulin and the management of insulin and controlling for pre-diabetes or diabetes, because that's what I was diagnosed with. So I want to understand, what role does exercise have in relation to insulin? Again, many people focus on foods, maybe carbohydrate restriction, maybe having a whole food, plant-based diet, whatever. There are so many different paths to try to manage this pre-diabetic hyperglycemic state that we're in. But often what is overlooked is the impact of movement once again. So we know movement, physical activity reduces type 2 diabetes risk. It reduces insulin resistance. It reduces metabolic syndrome. That's pretty well evidenced in the literature. No one would dispute that. But why does it have this effect? Basically, insulin really supports forcing energy into the cell, and most of those cells should be muscle tissue. So 75 to 80% of the action of insulin is to force glucose into muscle tissue. Of course, that muscle needs the demand, has to demand that fuel, that blood sugar. If you're sedentary, if you're physically inactive, then you are literally blocking the door to 80% of that blood glucose utilization being used. The next 10 to 15% tends to be hepatic, so to the liver, for glycogen stores, and then 5% tends to be for adipose tissue. So the overwhelming amount, the main reserve for insulin is really to be forced into muscle tissue. So that's one factor in terms of supporting physical activity. We know cells become more insulin sensitive if you're physically active. From 36 to 72 hours post-activity, your body is even more sensitive to insulin. So you don't need to produce as much, secrete as much. But the third point, and it's probably the last heavy science bit, unless somebody wants to ask some questions about this, is the fact that we have a non-insulin mediated glucose uptake. So basically, we don't need insulin to force blood glucose into the cell as long as you're physically active. So GLUT4, one of the glucose transporters, can bypass the use of insulin and a direct mechanism to the cell, but it requires physical activity to make that happen. And that's probably the most remarkable aspect of physical activity in relation to glucose control, blood glucose control. So those are sort of three areas that I was very interested in finding out more about and understanding the kind of the mechanistics around in relation to that. And I think it's important for us to feel comfortable and confident as to why movement is medicine and why people do support that view. And I certainly am one of those who does so. Okay, I've done a lot of talking, and I really would love to engage with the audience in relation to any questions you have. So I suppose I'll just hand it over to you guys, because it'd be far more interesting to hear you than for me to continue speaking. So fire away.
Thanks very much, Darryl. That was absolutely fascinating. And I'm very, very impressed at how well you took over your own health and found a way to make yourself better, really. And your GP did he didn't believe it was going to work, but he kind of went along with it, which is really good. And I'm glad that he supported you and helped you. And he was probably surprised just how big an impact your approach made. Now, before we started this evening, we asked everybody to put some questions up, and I've got a few that they've asked already. But if you're happy to take questions directly, we can try that, but we've got 50 people. So I would ask that if you want to ask the question and chat with Darryl, if you just put your hand up, and then we'll just come to you as we can, and then unmute and have a chat with you. Would that be okay, Darryl?
Yeah, that's great. And I'm already seeing some great questions coming in. So there's definitely a few of those I can answer very, very quickly too.
Yeah, okay. Do you want me to just read the questions out? It'd save you having to read the screen.
Yes, that'd be a great idea. And you know what? I suppose before we get into that, let's do a little bit of movement, right? So if you can, and you're happy to stand, if you could get out of your chairs. So I know we're kind of limited for space, but here's just a really interesting challenge, which is going to give us some cross-body movements, which is great for left-right brain communication. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to tilt my camera down so it might be a bit easier to see. All right. So what's going to happen is I'm going to lift my left leg, tap my right shoulder, right leg, right shoulder. Okay. So we're going to go for a marching pace. So you can even do this seated as well. Okay. So even this can be quite challenging just because of the additional coordination aspect. All right. So now we're going to go to a little bit of a faster, almost jogging pace. Okay. And now we're going to add knee taps. So it's opposite knee, shoulder. I can see a few of you are really struggling with the coordination. Okay, let's go a little bit faster. Okay, so there were not many activities that basically flood, oxygenate the brain, and have a significant activation on both the left and right sides of the brain. So cross-body activities are one of those. So hence why I'm crossing the body left, right to the knee, and that coordination challenge. Significant benefits to the hippocampus. It improves executive function, significantly reduces the risk of cognitive decline. That's why that sort of activity is important. We'll do one more, and then we'll go to questions. You see I'm already out of breath doing that. This one is a visualization technique. So what I want you to do is actually, we'll do two hands. Imagine you're Indiana Jones or Indiana Jane, and you're standing in front of a huge boulder, okay? And you've got to push this boulder away from you. So the push isn't going to be like this because it's not made out of paper. It's a huge, hefty piece of stone. So brace yourself, take a big, deep breath in, and push, 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 push. So the whole body should feel this. Push, 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 and keep breathing. Relax. Okay, let's do one more. Big, deep breath in. And push, 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 and keep breathing. Push, 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 push. Relax. Okay. So with that one, it takes a bit of getting used to because you've really got to think, imagine, and believe that you're there. So that definitely requires you to think of your inner child, pretending to be their superhero, and they can put literally everything into it. Interestingly, there's some science behind this as well. So those who've had injuries, hospitalization, who can't do any rehabilitation exercises, temporary paralysis, for example, by visualizing activities, by just imagining that they're pushing, they're running, they're on a bike, they're lifting weights, there's significant activation of the muscle. And so recovery time improves. There's less atrophy of muscle. They're more likely to be able to walk once they leave the bed. There's significant research on the power of the mind-body connection. So even though it feels as if, well, I'm not really pushing anything, if you believe that you are, and you really put the effort in, there's a significant benefit. So you can overcome your physical limitations by using your mental visualization. Okay, so there's a couple of primal play activities, one resistance-based and one cardiovascular. And let's get back onto the questions.
Thank you very much, Darryl. I'm going to keep an eye out for the hands going up. So please do, and then we'll bring you in. Earlier on, at the beginning of the talk, Vince mentioned that at the beginning of lockdown, there was a lot more people out jogging. And he presumed this was because there were a group of people no longer able to go to their gyms. Do you have a comment on that, Darryl?
Yes, I would say certainly most of the people who were doing that type of exercise, or doing push-ups in the park and the like, they were ex-gym individuals who wanted to continue some sort of exercise practice. when I spoke about my story earlier, I was probably talking about people who weren't usual gym goers, who probably didn't love the gym, but wanted to do something fun, and they had an excuse. They had to play with their kids. There was no playground equipment. So it's interesting what they chose, what those individuals chose. So for me, certainly, I did see less people jogging in my local park at that time. I saw more people doing really, well, as I said, going back to my childhood, I saw parents teaching kids clapping games and rhymes that they used to sing, and the jump rope was out, people doing double Dutch, and it was incredible. Grandparents, this is probably the best observation I had, was a grandmother. She was probably close to 70, and there were a couple of 9-year-old kids or so, 9 or 10 years old, and she was encouraging them to climb the tree. and I was like, oh my, this is so wonderful to see. She just wasn't concerned about their welfare at all. She was like, get up the tree, I'll tell you what to do, but you've got to do the work. I can't catch you if you fall. And and those activities, they wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened pre-COVID for sure. So, and of course now the park is, even without the weather. So this is during the good weather. Once the lockdowns had been repealed, then people went back to old behaviors, unfortunately. Yes.
Thank you, Darryl. You were talking about the children in the playground, and there was quite a lot of comments coming through from Bruce and Paulina saying they agreed completely with your comments about children not getting out to play. And Shamila mentioned that there is a increased risk aversion now to accidents happening, and she mentioned about snowball fights. I rember having absolutely amazing times snowball fighting at school. Yeah. Now it stopped. So there's it's not allowed because of risk analysis and risk aversion.
Yes. There is a significant issue around the two problems. One, most of the decision makers in relation to this, most parents, most school governors, they had the childhood that we're talking about, playing snowball, fighting, climbing trees. Many of us had that childhood. And for some reason, society has shifted to the point where we've decided that's not important for our children to undertake. And of course, there was always an element of risk. I remember a kid who broke their arm falling out of a tree. I do recall that. But the overwhelming majority of kids had no issues. And we've got to the point now where you are 3 times more likely to be admitted to A&E falling out of bed than falling out of a tree. So that's how far the needle has swung. We're so concerned about risk that kids don't even know how to fall safely anymore. So they literally can twist an ankle rolling out of bed. And we're not talking about bunk beds. We're talking about your standard everyday bed. Kids can't even fall out of bed. And so we've just gone too far. Of course, we need to have adequate safety measures in place. We want to make sure our kids are safe in safe havens, but not to the point where we're completely helicopter parenting them, where we're taking away all risk. The only way children are going to adapt to risk and to be able to manage risk is by able to assess it, communicate, resolve conflicts, decide if they have the ability to do something or not. Because all that we do is we wait until they have to make the decision for themselves at a later date, and they don't have the tools available to handle that. Because we've always told them, no, don't worry, Johnny, Jane, I'll do that for you. I'll take away all the risk. You don't have to worry about that. I'll make sure everything is safe. And then as soon as these children have to encounter a real danger or real threat, they're not armed to do so. And there's certainly research pointing to the fact that the increase in depression and self-harm and many of the emotional issues that are recurring for our children of today, it's because of play deprivation. Lots of studies that are available, published on that subject matter alone. So we really need to do something about this. I'm passionate about doing something about this, but of course it's not an individual. An individual can't do anything about this. It's not even parents can, because if you decide to do something different for your children, social services will probably be called in relation to, oh my goodness, those 8-year-old kids walk to school on their own. Those parents are neglectful. That's the sort of culture that we're in now. It's So risk aversion is a problem, but how are kids going to be able to manage risk without being able to risk assess that themselves? So free play is the best environment for children to be able to manage risk. Not supervised play, not with adults around. It's when kids decide to do things for themselves and they go, oh, do you reckon I could climb that tree? Can you give us a leg up? The adults will tell me not to do this, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. That's the sort of environment that we need for our kids.
Thank you very much, Darryl. That's a really excellent answer. I'm going to keep pressing on. We've got more questions coming in. There's some comments again during the talk from Bruce that searching for cowrie shells on a beach with his grandchildren in Northumberland, some of the benefits are not just the exercise, it's part of it, but there's the excitement, he's commenting on that.
Yes, I mean, I totally agree. So there are benefits of physical activity and exercise. They're compounded, the benefits are increased when you add nature. So doing the same activity outdoors, you enhance the benefits of physical activity. When you add active play, you even compound the benefits even more. So that's really important distinction. Active play gives significant more benefits than just the physical activity itself. I'll give you a little bit of science. Endorphins, for example. So endorphins, they're known as the runner's high, for example. As you know, endorphins, the precursor to endorphins are endocannabinoids. Endorphins are like a natural analgesic. It relieves us of pain. That's both physically and mentally. So that's why runners get this release of endorphins at the end of their run, because they put their body through an onslaught. The body goes, oh my goodness, you need to be flooded with something because you're never going to want to do this again. So we get this endorphin rush. The great thing about play, active play, is you get an endorphin rush immediately. You get an instant elevation of endorphins as soon as you embark in active play. If you exercise, you tend to get that at the end of the arduous activity. So you can get instant gratification. That's why active play gives you that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I instantly feel great right now, right in the first second of taking part in this. That's what's missing from a lot of exercise activities. It's delayed gratification. It's wait 30 days and then you'll see a benefit. Whereas if you're playing, it's like, let's see how great you can feel in the next few seconds. Let's see how you can challenge yourself, how you can explore what your body's capable of, how you can explore the environment around you. So yes, certainly expand your repertoire of playful options so that you're maximizing the benefits across the board, indoors, outdoors, on your own, with a group, obviously adhering to the guidelines, social distancing guidelines and so on. But those are the best benefit, the best way to foster a playful state. And all of those feel-good hormones, so serotonin is another example. Serotonin is activated with physical activity. It's activated by sunshine. If you're playing, we get even more serotonin release. Dopamine, you get a natural dopamine response with play because you're always balancing risk-reward. There's an amount of physical exertion required in order for you to obtain an element of risk, in order for you to retain that reward. So you build good reserves and resilience in relation to dopamine. You're less likely to succumb to the touch screen that many of our youngsters are seduced by. So hopefully that covers that.
Yeah.
Thanks, science around that.
That's really excellent. I mean, we're learning so much this evening. It's just absolutely fascinating. And I'd like to carry on with the questions if I can. Is there an app for Primal Play, or is it just on the website, or is there an app as well?
Yeah, so great question. I do have an online course, an e-course called an Animal Moves course. I do have a book called Animal Moves as well, which does contain some of it's mainly for individuals, but I do have group-based, family-based activities as well. So I have some fun days in there where I really push the bar in terms of play. And that's probably the best place to start, is the Primal Play book, the Animal Moves book, or the Animal Moves e-course. And I also have the Animal Moves fitness decks. So they're packs of cards that basically help to randomize, and again, a great activity for family to decide, okay, what we're going to do next for different levels of ability. I have some for adults, I have some for juniors and very young children, so they're more educational, for 3 to 6. And I also have an office-based animal moves deck called Office Moves, which is for people in an office environment where you want to get some movement snacks in 20, 30 seconds, and you don't want to spend your time just doing stretches. You know, if you actually want to get some real benefit from movement at your desk, my watch is replying to me, then that's what you can, those are the sort of utilities that I have available on my website. And I will also say, and you're kind of the first to know, there will be an all singing, all dancing primal play kind of play school available in the very near future, probably early next year. So yeah, watch this space. Sign up for the mailing list and you'll find out a little bit more about that.
Oh, that sounds great. I'm sure that, you know, I'm definitely going to be looking into what you've been describing, Darryl. I'm sure there's so many more questions. I'm just going to have to keep pressing on. Have you got any data on fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome and the benefits of exercise? Has that been something you've come across?
Yes, I actually have on my previous website, fitnessexplorer.com. I have some research there. I do have some research on my, if in terms of what I've discussed tonight, if you go to primalplay.com, there's a section on the menu called Movement is Medicine. And that has a lot of the citations. It does include chronic fatigue. A few of my clients actually have chronic fatigue. And there is this concern about doing too much. Exercise can literally put them out for days or weeks if they do too much. In general, and the research kind of reflects this, very short durations with increased intensity are far more effective than low intensity, you know, let's go for as long as we can, do as much as you can. That's not the way to go. Usually very short bursts, even a few seconds of activity and significant rest. So almost like a medium intensity interval training in effect for those with chronic fatigue works really well. So there's good evidence that it supports mitochondrial production, increased volume, increased ATP production. So there's a reduction in fatigue. There's significant improvements in quality of life. There's certainly improvements in pain, you know, reductions in pain. So that's what the research sort of discusses in more detail than I've just given you.
Thank you very much, Darryl. So that was from Irina. I need to put my glasses on. Shamila commented that she agrees completely that her children are ace tree climbers and kids need to learn about risk and understand their bodies and what they can do. And Joanne has mentioned that the school my children went to still closes inside for 2 hours if there's 2 days of snow, and we have to send Welly's glove to let them play in the playground in the snow. So some schools do still believe in play, which yes. is kind of good news.
Yes, that's great. That really is great news. But you know, maybe they should spend some of that time outdoors as well, building snowmen, playing snowball fighting. I don't know. I would say they could probably take it another step further and get the kids out there.
Yeah. Sorry, I misread what Joe said. They do go out. They have
perfect.
And gloves and they play out. Sorry about that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, great. That sounds fantastic.
And Shamila again mentioned it's crucial for the development of proprioception that most of our sensory development occurs in childhood.
Yes. Yes, certainly. If basically children are deprived of crawling as a toddler, they're more likely to have attention deficit disorder, more likely to have mental and physical dysfunction, more likely to be on the spectrum, for example. So there's a significant benefit of undergoing those physical developmental practices and not being, told not to do it. Stop crawling, like get in your high chair, don't move. So yeah, children need to be moving more, and there's significant benefits. And if you don't crawl, here's another fascinating fact. If you don't crawl by the age of 11, ever, you'll never develop a crawling motion. So that's an interesting fact. And a crawling pattern has significant, again, left-right brain interaction. So it's one of the best activities for the brain in terms of movement, is those cross-body activities. So when we're walking, for example, that's why we walk opposite arm, opposite leg. That's what we're programmed to do. And children who don't walk that way who don't crawl that way, so that if they walk or crawl ipsilaterally, there's significant reduction in their abilities physically and cognitively. So a bit of trivia there about.
No, thank you, Darryl. I've got, what is it, 5 grandchildren now, so they'll be all getting some ideas for playing from tomorrow. Bruce, back again with the Paralympics started in Stoke Mandeville, and paralysed patients were encouraged to get out there. And there was a chap called Dr. Gutman was the hero, and he's recommending the movie The Best of Men. So I don't know if you've come across that, but Bruce is one of our very esteemed neurosurgeons, and he's obviously enjoyed the presentation. I wish in a way we could get comments coming from the individuals, but there's so many that I'm just going to press on because of time.
Okay. Let's do a rapid fire round. I promise you I will answer within a sentence or two maximum.
Okay. So as I say, the film is The Best of Men. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it'll be an excellent one to catch.
Yes, just to add to that, I did hear of this individual. He was in a recent documentary on Netflix, which actually covers the history of the Paralympic Games.
Yeah.
So that's how I found out about him, and it's very inspiring documentary. Unfortunately, I can't recall the name of it, but if you do have Netflix, search for the Paralympics, and it's an incredible documentary. It really, really is. And it's great to see it started off here in the UK, so which is great.
I will share the questions and the answers as best I can remember with a file to everybody as well, and I'll put any links in that we have. Barbara was saying, can you suggest any playful ways to get my practice staff and colleagues a little more active during their working days, which you could try out within the confines of how we are having to work at the moment? That's from Barbara Barton.
Barbara, the office moves deck. That's really the solution. Playing card size. You've got activities that they can do individually, or they can even partner up if they're able to have personal contact. But yeah, that's a great starting point. It's full of movement snacks, lots of interesting things. So they shouldn't be bored by doing the stuff that they may feel they should be doing. It's made for people in their work attire. They don't have to get into training gear, and they literally start from sort of 10, 15 seconds onwards. So you can spend as much time as you want doing those activities. So yes, it's if you go to primalplay.com, the store, you'll see the information on those packs of cards, the fitness decks.
Thank you. A nice summary from Daphne Robbins. Get your daily dose, DOSE, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So good.
Totally agree. Oxytocin. So oxytocin is, again, enhanced levels of oxytocin when you're in a play state. Eye contact, the social communication that comes from play elevates oxytocin levels. So it's not just physical touch, it's not just the hug hormone. There's the playful state, the lucid state that we get into that releases oxytocin as well.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to press on. Irina Davis again. She's commenting about a recent BMJ article published in Research about old people in the Netherlands. There was no improvement in overall mortality in those doing high intensity training and moderate intensity exercise compared to the general population. And it was suggesting that combined moderate intensity and high intensity had no effect on all-cause mortality compared with recommended physical activity levels. However, the authors observed a lower all-cause mortality trend after high intensity training compared with controls and medium intensity. She was just saying she thought that was a bit disappointing.
Well, no, I mean, if it's no worse, then it's not disappointing at all, because if you're doing HIIT, it's going to save a lot of time. So I think, I mean, I haven't looked at, that's the only, I mean, I have seen other studies actually much better reflecting the benefits for older adults. So, there's no point just looking at one study, but certainly I would advocate HIIT for all populations. It just has to be prescribed accurately. And to be honest, without sounding arrogant, many people don't understand what the HIIT protocol should be. So the HIIT protocol should be very, very intense levels of exertion, which may not have even be mandated in that situation. So it depends what they were doing, to be fair. And certainly I would say the benefits to the immune system are far greater. So there's a greater production of, immunoregulation improves, for example. This immunosurveillance improves after HIIT. Again, short durations. So we're not talking 45-minute HIIT sessions. We're talking like 10, 15 maximum would be HIIT duration, and there would be significant recovery periods within that. So you might only be talking about 2 or 3 minutes of actual exertion and about 9 minutes of rest recovery. But yeah, the research points to it being really powerful medicine. It's just difficult to do. It can be quite stressful for individuals to kind of embark on that. What I would certainly say is there were no silver bullets here. Movements were designed to move at all speeds for all different types of durations in all planes of motion and lots of different components of fitness. That's what I think we should be focusing on. It's like me saying you should only eat avocados because they're very nutritious. And let's compare avocados versus eating an apple. And that's, and if the avocado comes out better, then that's what we should be eating. But we know if we just ate avocados, we'll be deficient in certain nutrients and phytonutrients, and it's not complete. And it's exactly the same with movement. HIIT alone is not what we should be doing. Neither is low intensity alone or just doing strength. We need to do all of those things. Walk, run, sprint if we can, low intensity, medium intensity, high intensity, resistance with just our body weight, resistance with more than more than ourselves. We need balance, we need coordination, we need agility, we need expressions of power. There are all of these nuances to movement, which I think is an important part of this. We have the eat well plate, whether you agree with that plate or not, but we need a move well plate. And if we had a move well plate, you would literally see lots of different segments of that plate covering all of these modalities. And that's something that I do talk about with the Primal Play, is making sure you have a well-balanced, nutritionally dense movement practice. That's what we should be aiming for.
Darryl, that is absolutely wonderful. I've got one last comment and I'm going to pass it over to Varun. You've answered the questions really, really well. The comment from Shamila, thank you for the session. I'm afraid I need to go. I've really enjoyed this and enjoyed the science behind it. Thanks, Darryl and the organisers. And Kiran, Shamal's son, has joined to say, your session was the best fitness session I've ever seen. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. That's really touched me. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Especially coming from, that's really, really nice. Thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Not at all. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm really looking forward. I'm going to catch up with you again, Darryl, I'm sure. But for now, I'm going to pass over to Varun to have a few words, and I'm sure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Hi, Darryl. Thank you so much for that presentation and talk. Really, really loved it.
You're welcome.
It really came from the heart, and thank you for all the questions. I also had a couple of comments / questions just to finish up from my side. That often are kind of myths with patients and things around physical activity and inactivity with weight loss. So my understanding is that it's important for weight loss, but only kind of minimal contribution, and it's more important for prevention of weight gain. The muscle mass will help because of metabolism, and you may not notice weight loss initially because you may increase muscle mass if you're doing strength training. That was one of my comments. Is that true? And the other comment was around the inactivity and sedentary lifestyle. I'm aware that the gym workout or whatever exercise you do in a short burst, say in the morning, half an hour run, whatever you do, if you then still sit on Netflix for the rest of the day, that inactivity doesn't get outdone by your half an hour run or jog in the morning. It's that regular, every half an hour kind of getting up, a type simple low intensity movement that will actually reduce your harms of inactivity. So I wanted to get that across as well to make sure people understood that, and if you agreed.
Okay, right. So with the first point, there are so many myths around that. You can't out-exercise a poor diet. Exercise is not great for weight loss. It's about diet again. So the first thing is purely observational, right? you look at people who spend a lot of time being physically active, they don't tend to have problems managing and maintaining their body composition. The downside is they have to do a lot of that work, several hours a day of pretty significant physical activity. Most studies, when they compare physical activity to diet, looking at weight loss, they basically compare usually a calorie restricted diet between 500 and 800 a day. I mean, imagine that, not sustainable. They usually compare 500 to 800 calories a day, and then they try to do 30 minutes of physical activity. It's impossible to burn that many calories in that time, even if you're going all out. And that's what they use as the barometer to say, diet is far more effective than exercise. So one, most of the studies I believe are flawed. Secondly, you do have to do a lot of work when it comes to physical activity if you want that to be one of the main ways to maintain body composition. We don't have the time. We've got other things to do with our lives. And the advantage is that the research certainly tells us that the best way to maintain success with body composition long-term is a combination of diet and exercise. So that's probably where I would position myself. But if you want to dig a bit deeper on some of the research, go along to my website, because it's quite that myth I want to dispel, because it's not. Yes. Anyway, the next. Let's move on. So the next question was in relation to. Oh, sorry, I've slipped my mind.
It was the inactivity. Doing
yes.
inactivity from your morning, say. Activity.
Yes. So if you have to do at least an hour of moderate intensity physical activity, which is basically a brisk walk to a run, depending on your level of conditioning, pretty much, to undo the harmful effects of 6 to 8 hours of sedentary time per day. So again, it's a problem. Even if you're in the gym for an hour, going for a walk for an hour a day, it's not undoing sedentary time. So certainly breaking up sedentary time is the biggest benefit in terms of movement, bang for your buck. And the last point is, if you want to understand why that is, when we stand, even if we go from sitting to standing, if you stand, there's another important enzyme. There's an enzyme that's released with muscle contraction, which is lipoprotein lipase. So lipoprotein lipase basically breaks down circulating blood fats. And that's one of the reasons why we basically become dormant when we're sitting down and our musculoskeletal system is being supported by a chair, and we switch that off. And so that creates this, atherogenic, pro-inflammatory environment. So when we're standing and sitting regularly or moving, pottering around throughout the hour, throughout the day, that's a much better state to be in. So that's a significant benefit, just moving around a bit, a couple of minutes every hour. If you're really having to sit down, just make sure you take some regular breaks. Drink lots of water, make sure you got to go to the toilet.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. That's great. Thanks for confirming that, Darryl, for me. And thanks a lot again for being our speaker tonight. We really enjoyed the session. You had some great questions. Thanks for answering them all. We're hopefully going to get it recorded, if that's okay with you, and we'll send it to any members who couldn't join tonight. And we'll get the links to your website and your resources out to our members as well, so they can access them in their own time. And I'm sure many of them will, based on the feedback tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening and spending your evening with me. And it's been a real pleasure. So thank you for the great questions. Really interesting topic. As I mentioned to the organizers earlier, I literally just moved in and had the internet connected today. So I was really concerned we wouldn't be able to go live, or I'd be on my mobile phone or something. So I'm glad it all went well. And thank you again for a wonderful event.
It all went great, and congratulations on the move.
Thank you.
Just for our members, our next event is next month on Wednesday, the 18th of November, with Dr. Asim Malhotra, consultant cardiologist, on COVID-19, lifestyle medicine and the immune system. And I'm sure he'll be mentioning physical activity in there as well. So join us for the next talk. But for now, good evening and good night. Take care, Darryl. Thank you.
Good night all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.